Your worship associate this morning. We welcome everyone here and online to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke, with a special welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. We hope you stay after the service for coffee in the fellowship hall. For the folks online, let's take a moment to stand and connect with everybody watching at home. For those of you online who wish to share your joys and concerns during the lifelines a portion of the service, please put them in the chat in the next 15 minutes. We acknowledge that our church resides on the traditional lands of the Tutelo and Monacan nations and was later farmed and developed through slave labor. We recognize and respect the ongoing connection to this land by generations of Black and Indigenous people of color. May our gratitude and fellowship here echo and honor that rich history. Our minister is Reverend Kirk Ballin, our minister emeritus. Reverend Walter LaFleur has been on medical leave. Let's take a moment to send him some good thoughts. Our sermon today with Reverend Kirk Ballin is freedom. Everyone knows what it is, but no one knows what it is. Please join me in reciting our words of welcome. Whomever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage others, all who welcome all are welcome here.
He's going to recite the covenant as well.
Where did it go? Where? Yeah. And communication. And we are communication. I don't know where it went, but it isn't on this paper. Okay, all right. It's turning out to be one of those kind of mornings. Okay, I'll turn it over to the music. We'll all calm down and it'll all go good. In our opening words for this morning, we are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. We light our chalice as a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith.
To heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of life.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Jessie McEwen. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development or Religious Education here at UUCR. And I'm going to invite up young folks, people who are young at heart, people who would like to take on a task this morning. And if you don't come up, you're still taking on this task, just by the way. So I have recently been writing down the recipes that my sister makes. She calls me and tells me what she's doing, and I write it down, and we try it again to see if I got it right. I don't always get it right. Sometimes it's salt instead of sugar, and we make a big mess. But I like to help her like that, because while she's cooking, her hands are dirty, she's doing the thing, and I can write down the recipe of what she's doing. But as you know, it's not always perfect. So today, we are all in the business of making freedom. But somebody's got to write that recipe down. So everybody's going to get an index card. You can do it too. Anybody else want to participate? All right. So if you want to be an index card person, your job is to write down what other people, or take a marker with you and have somebody else write down on this index card as you go around. You want to go around, or do you want to you want to take the recipe? All right. So you got to visit 3 people. So 3 markers, 3 people, 1 index card. Get them to write what makes freedom, what they are going to put in their recipe for freedom. So you guys get up and go find some folks. Take 3 markers with you. There's 3. There's 3. And if somebody comes up to you and you don't know what to put on there, you might be able to dig down and find something. Once you get your 3, you can come back up. I'm working on 3 too. Another card, use that. There you go. Oh, we're just getting 3 for now, because we could take up the whole service. Nice. All right. We're back. So what are we putting in our big pot of freedom? Do you think we all got the same thing? No? I wonder why. We've got liberty. We've got I have no idea. Acceptance, self-awareness, mutual respect, equality and equity for all. What else do we have? choice, justice, and liberation. What'd you get? Self-esteem, another for choice, make friends with whoever I choose. I like that. Okay. Being with the people you love. Was that a physician? Just wondering if that was a doctor. Speech, like freedom of speech and acceptance. So some things are similar in our recipe. Do you think there's something that you guys want to put in the recipe that wasn't named? No? What was that? The ability to make mistakes. Just shout them out because I can't see. Compassion, anti-judgmental. Anything else? The pursuit of happiness, belonging. How about we can dress however we want to? That's a freedom that a lot of people don't get because we like to make fun of people sometimes. Put our hair up however we want to. There's a lot to do with appearance. There's a lot to do with how we feel inside, and there's a lot to do with how we interact with people. Is freedom easy, you think? No? Do you think some people work on this recipe their whole lives? How long do you think our country's been working on this recipe? A while. That's a pretty solid answer. Like 15 years, maybe even more than that. So we're going to head upstairs. We're going to exercise our freedom to listen to some stories and make some pottery. Yeah. Religious freedom is part of that too. So I'm going to chase them and pick up these markers.
I don't think the bulletin says responsive reading, but it is a responsive reading, so it's on the, will be on the screen momentarily. It's also in your hymnal in the back, 592, if you want to look there, if you prefer to read along there. There we go. All right. The free mind. I call that mind free which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness, which passes life not in asking what it shall eat or drink, but in hungering, thirsting, and seeking after righteousness. I call that mind free which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith, which opens itself to light whensoever it may come, which receives new truth as an angel from heaven. I call that mind free which is not passively framed by outward circumstances and is not the creature of accidental impulse, which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the radiant spirit, and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement. I call that mind free which protects itself against the usurpations of society and which does not cower to human opinion, which refuses to be a slave or tool of the many or the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world. I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past nor live on its old virtues, but which listens for new and higher monitions of conscience and refuses to pour itself forth in fresher and higher exertions. I call that mind free which sets no bounds to its love, which, wherever they are seen, delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering, which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of mankind. I call that mind free which has cast off all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall. It is calm in the midst of tumults and possesses itself through all else be lost. That was William Ellery Channing.
Good morning, everyone. Let's just take a moment and take a couple, if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, let's just take three nice deep breaths. Let me start by thanking all those who helped make this service this morning possible, particularly James and Betsy on sound and video there, and Kay and Carrie and Nikolai, who are here providing the music for us, and certainly Jesse in chairing the children's time with us this morning, and Susan, who's not with us, but she will be here afterwards, apparently, handing out keys, but Susan, who is our administrator in the office, so thank you to all of them. What I'm going to be talking about today is my Independence Day sermon, and I'm going to start with a few short readings. One is also from our hymnal. It's an excerpt from Out of the Stars, number 530. Out of the stars we have come, up from time, out of the stars rising from rocks and sea, kindled by sunlight on earth arose life. Out of the sea to the land, up from darkness to light, rising to walk and to fly, out of the sea trembled life. The second reading comes from Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, on freedom. Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. The third reading I'm going to do from this chair here, because it's kind of in a way a dramatic reading, but it comes from Octavia Butler's Kindred. Octavia Butler, for those who don't know, is an African-American woman who made her way into science fiction. But this is her one book where she's not talking about the future, although it is certainly relevant to the future. But this is about a woman named Dana who was living in the 1970s and was a poet and alike, and who was suddenly, for inexplicable reasons, transported back to times of slavery, where she's suddenly on a plantation where she has to deal with the fact that she's black. And of course, if you're black, you're a slave. But here she is, a woman with the knowledge that she has of all of that in the 1970s and her own experiences. But this is an exchange of Dana with a woman named Alice, who is living on the plantation. And it references Rufus, who is the owner of the plantation and who is the master. So this is an exchange between Dana and Alice, and Alice is working on a dress that she's making for Dana. Of course, Alice does not know the context in which Alice is there. So I'm going to share this with you over here. And this is Alice speaking to Dana. Yeah, now tell me what you come here to say that you don't want to say. I looked at her, startled. You think I don't know you after all this time? You got a look that says you don't want to be here. Yes, Rufus sent me to talk to you. I hesitated. He wants you tonight. Her expression hardened. He sent you to tell me that? No. She waited, glaring at me, silently demanding that I tell her more. I said nothing. Well, what did he send you for then? To talk you into going to him quietly and to tell you you'd be whipped this time if you resist. Shit. Well, all right, you told me. Now get out of here before I throw this dress in the fireplace and light it. I don't give a damn what you do with that dress. Now it was her turn to be startled. I didn't usually talk to her that way, even when she deserved it. I leaned back comfortably in Nigel's homemade chair. Message delivered, I said. Do what you want. I mean to. You might look ahead a little, though. Ahead in all three directions. What are you talking about? Well, it looks as though you have three choices. You can go to him as he orders. You can refuse, be whipped, and then have him take you by force. Or you can run away again. She said nothing, bent to her sewing and drew the needle in quick and neat, tiny stitches, even though her hands were shaking. I picked up the baby that was lying next to her, and then I put the baby down quickly, just in time, as it turned out. Dana? I looked at her. What am I going to do? I hesitated, shook my head. I can't advise you. It's your body, not mine. Her voice had dropped to a whisper. Not mine, his. He paid for it, didn't he? Paid who, you? You know he didn't pay me, or what's the difference? Whether it's right or wrong, the law says he owns me now. I don't know why he hasn't already whipped the skin off me. The things I've said to him. You know why. She began to cry. I ought to take a knife in there with me and cut his damn throat. She glared at me. Now go tell him that. Tell him that I'm talking about killing him. Tell him yourself. Do your job. Go tell him. That's what you for, to help white folks keep niggers down. That's why he sent you to me. They be calling you Mammy in a few years. You be running the whole house when the old man dies. I shrugged and stopped the curious baby from sucking on my shoestring. Go tell on me, Dana. Show him the kind of woman he needs, not me. I said nothing. One white man, two white men, what difference do it make? One black man, two black men, what difference does that make? I could have 10 black men without turning against my own. I shrugged again, refusing to argue with her. What could I win? And then finally, this short statement. This is by a woman named Alla Gutnikova. She was a Russian school teacher, and when Russia invaded Ukraine, this was posted on Facebook somewhere, and I saved this because I thought it was so potent. Because she, being a teacher, she was fearing what was going to happen to her when she went back to school to teach. and if she was going to teach the truth about what had happened and what was going to happen to her and the other teachers. And she wrote, "Freedom is a process by which you develop the habit of being inaccessible to slavery." Freedom. Last year, I spoke to the congregation in Harrisonburg, Virginia, about the ecology of freedom, borrowing a phrase from the authors of The Dawn of Almost Everything, A History of Humanity. It's a remarkable book highlighting that human societies have experimented with a myriad of models for human social organizing way before the biased and constricted historical summaries we have been taught. I won't summarize too much, but I said, among other things, that probably that more than any other American religious movement, Unitarian Universalism most poignantly reflects the American ideals of human freedom as expressed in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. And in doing so, Unitarian Universalism, at least in word, seeks to counter the dominant culture of arrogance, inequality, exploitation, and injustice as fostered by our myopic interpretation of human history. Unitarian Universalism, in spirit and in its work, seeks to foster this necessary ecology of freedom, to engage with the evolutionary and existential crisis our species is facing. This commitment was profoundly reflected in our recent Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, particularly in the support of the Article 2 revision, with actionized love as the center of our purpose as a movement. So an ecology of freedom demands not being confined by the tyranny of the dominant culture. Yet every second of our waking lives, and probably even in our sleep dreams, we swim in a dominant culture of arrogance and tyranny. But I also suggested that our Unitarian Universalist principles, our values, are the protrusion of the leg-like appendages of the early forms of life crawling out of the sea. Borrowing from the reading in our Out of the Stars We Have Come, out of the sea to the land, rising to walk and to fly out of the sea, trembled life. It is only in actually exercising, actionizing, not just reading or saying our Unitarian Universalist principles and values, our focus on love, that our ecology changes from one of resigned accommodation of tyranny to one of initially trembling ecology of freedom. Our Unitarian Universalist principles, our commitment to our values around love, as inspired by the ecology of freedom, given shape by our American democratic ideals, fertilized by the historical experiments and creativity of our indigenous ancestor, contain the means to change the course of human evolutionary history. And as I suggested last Sunday, I think that AI, artificial intelligence, needs to be our ally in this actionizing process. But this can only happen if more and more of us nurture the means to foster the ecology of freedom, to truly exercise and live our commitment to foster love, and thereby extract ourselves out of this arrogant culture of tyranny in which we live. During the conversation following that Harrisonburg service, someone asked me to define what freedom is. I kind of mumbled and jumbled something about freedom and that it got me through a lot of assignments in divinity school. and that freedom is kind of a big question. So my sermon today is still an inadequate answer to that person's question. For it is more to say that freedom answers its own question. My title this morning is Freedom. Everyone knows what it is, but no one really knows what it is. If I were to ask you, and it's so nice that Jessie did what they did this morning. If I were to ask each of you to write a line or two to say what freedom is, it would be very unlikely that each of you would write the same thing. There might be no duplications. My point being that we don't have too much trouble giving some kind of definition of freedom. The challenge, of course, is having everyone agree on that definition. Imagine surveying in a similar fashion all of Roanoke County or all of Virginia or all of the United States and every country in the world. The number of definitions of freedom would be seemingly endless. Yet, to each and every one of us, to every human being, freedom is essential to our being human. And yet, to that yet, we truly are not clear on how to know what freedom is, where to find it, and how to make it. Nonetheless, this primal need for freedom drives all human beings in fostering the cultures we live in and the lives we live. My free pass in divinity school in speaking of freedom was that I identified, from my perspective, how each major religion claims to know the path to freedom. And in step with this was my belief that the purpose of evolution was the unfolding of freedom in its most evolved state of existence. My point being that somehow this thing we call freedom is at the core of creation itself. All that we know and do to be alive is motivated by this inherent, this innate impulse. So, as the human species, we are seeking out freedom, not just in a biological way, to be freed from the limitations of our biological beings, but we seek out freedom cognitively. Our minds need to know what freedom is. The free mind. We are self-aware beings, and in doing so, we are acutely aware of our limitations and our finiteness. We die. So, being free of what limits our being alive is an intense preoccupation of our psyches and drives our behavior. Consequently, seeking freedom, to be clear on how to know what freedom is, where to find it, and how to make it, are the struggles of every single human being. Certainly we bunch up, as we do in this congregation, with other human beings to share in those struggles and define what freedom is. But ultimately, seeking freedom is an individual struggle. I, you, and every other human being, we all are seeking freedom. The excerpt from the Butler novel, Kindred, profoundly underscores how our choices for freedom are often not so clear or fulfilling. Well, it looks as though you have three choices. You can go to him as he orders. He has the freedom to do so. You can refuse, be whipped, then have him take you by force, or you can run away again. I can't run away again. You'd be hungry and cold and sick out there and so tired you can't walk. Then they find you and set the dogs on you. My Lord, the dogs, I'm going to him, but he don't know how. I wish I had the nerve to just kill him. What is her best choice for freedom? And do you recall during COVID restrictions, the so-called freedom convoys that brought Ottawa, Canada to a standstill, and similar convoys that snarled traffic in Washington, D.C. in the name of freedom to not be vaccinated or to take measures of precaution to prevent the spread of the deadly virus, versus the freedom of others not to be infected and possibly die? Is there a right freedom there? And what of the freedom of a woman to choose how to deal with her own pregnancy versus the freedom of the mostly male American courts and legislators to impose controls over women to choose how to manage their own health and well-being? Who or what is dictating a woman's freedom of reproductive health? And what of the freedom to purchase guns, especially high-powered semi-automatic rifles, justified by the interpretation of the freedom established by the Second Amendment, over the freedom of our children, of people of color, of innocent bystanders, not to be killed by those guns and rifles? To many people, guns are the most potent symbol of freedom there is. You limit a person's access to guns, you limit their freedom. You allow innocent children and shoppers in a grocery store, in a school, or at a parade to be mowed down by automatic weapons. You limit their freedoms to live. Freedom is what? I recently ran into a FedEx delivery guy who went on a tirade saying there's a war on the freedom of Christians and that the only way for anyone to truly be free is to be bathed in the blood of Christ. Freedom. Oh, how we all want it for ourselves. But all too often, one person's definition of freedom is at the expense of other people's freedom. The slave owner's freedom is dependent upon the slave labor status of other human beings. And we saw it during COVID with the unvaccinated anti-public health person's freedom to not care about the larger community. It was at the expense of those who believe that they have the freedom to not be exposed to a potentially deadly virus. The gun owner's freedom is to be able to buy weapons of mass destruction that can kill numerous people at a time is more important to supporters of gun freedoms than the freedom of children and people of color and people of different religious beliefs, people simply doing mundane tasks of living to be alive another day. These are, of course, glaring examples of how individuals choose to seek freedom while standing in opposition to others' ways of seeking freedom. Yet each of us must exercise our search for freedom in a myriad of ways every day. It is our reason for living. And it appears that there is an ongoing revolutionary civil kind of war of competing definitions of freedom. How do we navigate through this battlefield of freedom? For me, I find the two quotations on freedom that I shared earlier to be helpful guideposts in navigating this turmoil of clashing understandings of this innate human search for freedom. The first was from the Russian teacher. Freedom is a process by which you develop the habit of being inaccessible to slavery. The second, Thich Nhat Hanh, letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we are still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. Both are saying somewhat the same thing. They're saying what freedom is not. That ultimately freedom is our cultivating an awareness of developing a habit of being inaccessible to that which enslaves us, to that which we are attached that enslaves us. We are not free when attached to addictions and cultural dictates. These take many manifestations in our daily lives of personal and social behavior, and in the social and political forces that try to dictate how we should behave in service to the tyranny of exploitation, governments, ideologies, religious beliefs, etc., that define freedom for us in order to control us. To control us in order to sustain the freedom as defined by the arrogant, tyrannical agenda of an economic and social system that serves only a few. Our Unitarian Universalist principles and values, with love at the core, can help guide us out of this culture of tyranny in which we live. But as Thich Nhat Hanh, as Buddhist thought advises, letting go gives us freedom. Freedom is the only condition for happiness. If in our heart we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free. Our attachment to anything challenges our ability to be truly free. Yet we must live our lives in such a way that we strive to be aware of ongoing threats to our freedoms. Be aware of our individual attachments which undermine our ability to be inaccessible to enslavement. Thich Nhat Hanh certainly recommends cultivating a state of mindfulness that fosters compassion and loving kindness. This makes a person more immune to enslavement, even under the direst of circumstances, such as Alice found herself in the reading from Kindred. And we Unitarian Universalists have the words of William Ellery Channing that were shared earlier from the free mind. I call that mind free, which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past, nor live with old virtues. How do you think about freedom? Our Unitarian Universalist principles, our values, and focus on love can help guide us out of this arrogant culture of tyranny in which we live. So when you hear someone talking about what freedom is, listen to them. They are speaking out of their genuine, innate need for freedom. Freedom from whatever their fear, their suffering is in this world. But they, and by they I mean all of us, they speak out of their unawareness, their ignorance, that freedom is not something that anyone owns or acquires or expects others to abide by. Rather, freedom is ultimately our ability to cultivate the habit of being inaccessible to slavery, inaccessible to fear, and letting go of our attachments that give us a false sense of freedom. For attachments are only forms of enslavements. For attachments can only manifest in suffering that foster the fear of loss. If in our hearts we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, ambition, possessions, if we are driven by fear of the loss of these attachments, we cannot be free. For fear is the greatest obstacle to freedom. So whatever your idea of freedom is, it's wrong. But you have no choice but to keep trying to understand it and live it. As Butler, Godnikova, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Channing remind us, ultimately, freedom is just a state of mind. And what has been happening politically in our nation, especially with regard to the Supreme Court, I dissent. And with regard to Project 2025, decry, defy, defeat, for some idea of your freedom is at risk. Thank you. is through your generosity, your freedom of generosity, that helps support this congregation as we strive to be a community that fosters freedom throughout the community in which we live and throughout the world. So to the extent to which you can help contribute to that, very much appreciated. Thank you. That was just beautiful. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sally Garber. It's my honor to represent the Caring Committee this morning. If you have a joy or concern, please take the time to either write it in our book that's here every morning or send an email to a member of the Caring Committee or call the church office. This morning I have quite a few things to report to you this morning. Tim Andriano had successful third surgery on Friday and hopes that he can be home by July 13th. It's been a real long haul for Tim, and we're really excited that he may finally be able to return home. Betty Bright is in Roanoke Memorial Hospital, where she's resting as she deals with cancer. Today is the 45th wedding anniversary for Chris and Rudy Yates, so we're excited that they're here to celebrate with us. Some other good news. Betsy Biesenbach's son, Ian Oring, was married in Central Park this Saturday. Ian grew up here at UUCR and was a huge fan of Kirk. Next, I have an update on Greta McFair. She continues to heal from her June 18th accident. Her right knee suffered a torn ACL and some compression fractures of the tibia. Rest and immobilization for now, with great support from family and friends and our UUCR community. Thank you so much. She'll be back in the garden later this summer. And another member of our congregation suffered a fall. Nina Hentz broke her right wrist in a fall. She's now in a cast above her right elbow. That's for 2 weeks before they can put on a more permanent and usable cast. So please keep all of these people in your thoughts for the next few weeks. Now, if you have a silent joy or concern that you hold on your heart, please come forward during the music meditation and use both sides of the altar. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie and Nikolai. May our prayers be heard and our hearts be restored.
Let's just take a moment to sit quietly, be alone with our thoughts, but also be alone with our presence of what we know we seek to find in ourselves and for others, to seek an understanding of freedom that takes no freedom away from someone else. It's our calling. We thank and are grateful for this time that we share together in trying to foster what it means to be free. Let's sit for a moment in quiet reflection, prayer, and meditation. May I who live be true unto my being, one in my thoughts, my words, and every deed. I was born free, an ever-changing river is what I am, and neighbor, so are you. We have the power through laughter, love, and tears to face all fears and live forever free. Amen.
To everyone, just a few announcements. To everyone who reserved a new key, please stop by the administrator's office after the service today, July 7th, and get your new key to the back and front doors. After the keys are distributed, the locks will be changed. Please watch for signs and updates notifying you of the door lock status. Directory, please don't forget to send Susan your updates, corrections, and revisions, etc. for the church directory. Send them to admin@uuroanoke.org by July 15th. And carpet cleaning, we need volunteers on Sunday, July 7th at 1 o'clock to move furniture off the carpet that will be cleaned on Wednesday, July 10th. Please avoid visiting UUCR on that Wednesday as the carpet will be wet. See Celeste for questions. And one last request is on your way out, if you would pick up one or two hymnals nearby you and put them on the rolling cart in the room next door to save the ushers from having to pick up all of those books at the end. So thank you very much.
Our closing hymn is number 169. It'll also be on the screen. We Shall Overcome. And it's rather high, so we're going to do it a little lower. So if the piano drops out, that's just because my brain just can't do it. But we can carry on.
Please stand if you're willing and able. Let us leave here today renewed in spirit, but also renewed in our commitment of seeking out what freedom is and to look at ourselves individually and see where our enslavements are, where our attachments are, and to see which ones are giving us, taking from us our sense of what it means to be alive and it means to be free, and to know that if we take freedom away from others, we are taking freedom away from ourselves. Thank you for coming together today. Amen. Thank you, Kay.